if the audience is asked, like after the video has ended, which particular video did they understand most into, which was the video they get bored into. So if we have these two type of categories, like one is expert and the other one is a non-expert, but essentially someone who is similar to a science communicator. So they had found that if the person is a PhD, that doesn't necessarily guarantee that people will be more inclined into it, or they will be understanding it more.
Greetings, fellow explorers, and welcome to the 20th episode of Geekoscopy 101, the podcast that explores the nexus between science, story, wonder, and philosophy. With me, your host, Dr. Yanis Kistan, and today we're exploring the depths of the cosmos with science communicator Rashmi Sheoran, aka Astro Roxy. All right, welcome to the show, Rashmi. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing great. It's evening, almost late evening here in India, and I will just go out and enjoy the night sky after a while.
Okay, that sounds fun. Something to look forward to. Every night is looking out at the night sky. Do you live in a fairly populated place, right? So, how clear is the sky at night, given all the light pollution I expect is around you?
Yeah, so like currently, I have traveled to this location of Delhi NCR, which is near the capital of India, in Delhi, which is very polluted because it's a metro city. But usually, just few days back, I was for almost a year. I was in Haryana, in a village in Haryana where it is my hometown. So I was living with my parents and my family there. So there, the night sky is very good, very clear. Almost, if we talk about the astronomical terms here, that is the Bortle scale of 3 and 4. That's like the night sky is very clear on a scale of from 0 to 7. 7 means very bad, 0 means very dark. So I was somewhere, in near the a good location. But here, currently, the night sky isn't that great. It's somewhere around maybe 5 or more. So there is a lot of light pollution and just air pollution, because of which I'm not able to see those same constellations and those same stars. Even though I usually go out, but I cannot spot those same constellations, even though I know where they should be, because they're just because of the light pollution here in the city.
Yeah, I suppose that's very interesting for somebody who knows where things should be, as
Yeah,
opposed to
it's not there
me.
anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting. But that comes to the topic of conversation, which is basically, what you do in the science communication realm, and the things that you like. So why don't you tell us a bit about who you are in this moment and what you do?
Yeah, well, so I like to define myself. So, I do multimedia science communication. So that's like not just one form of science communication, but many in the using the media. So I do make videos. I also do just use social media and do either I can do put out some stories, some IGTV, or something else that's going on. Like sometimes it's real or some a post or a challenge. These type of things. I can also just do in audio, so I can record something and then I can publish it out. So it's like the different mediums which are there, not just the writing a blog. So not just the written, not just the video format, but essentially more than one form of media. I have been training myself to be good at all of them. So currently, I'm very much confident when it comes to just doing science communication on social media, and also just doing it digitally in form of through videos. Either they could be long or short. Currently, in this moment, I am working on a multilingual series, and what I mean by multilingual is it will be more than one language, because since past 2 years, the science communication I have been doing is major in just English, because that's the language we use everywhere else on the internet, even in real life, but not necessarily in our family. So I have noticed that some of my audience is not able to understand what I was, talking about, because they were not that fluent in English. And that made me realize that, okay, India has so many languages. Why just keep, the content that I'm creating to English? So currently I'm working on a series where the topic is not that much, it's not that much of a new. It's simply that we have so many misconceptions and misinformation in astronomy, like how some people think why exactly a solar eclipse happens, and there's so much misinformation about why exactly is happening, and maybe it's bad for your health. So, things like this, to talk about them not just in English, but to talk about them in Hindi, in Punjabi, in Tamil, in Telugu, some of the major languages, Indian major languages, and release them out for school students to see, so that before they're old enough, before they're in their 20s and their mind is too hard to change, they're, as soon as they're growing up, maybe if they get their hands on in this type of series, where they're learning about these concepts, where we have a scientific reason why exactly these things are happening in the night sky. So I think that would be beneficial for like me reaching and finding an audience and doing something on my own. Also, it will be helpful for the students here in India who are just learning and maybe they don't have that much fluency in English. And I'm also hoping to take this thing beyond India and covering the same thing in other languages. But as of now, I'm just focusing firstly on just writing the script. How essentially will students in school might be relating to this concept. So I'm working on those things, and along with that, along with the science communication that I do mostly on my own, I work as the chief astronomical officer in a space education company known as Space101, which is also based in Delhi NCR, which is why I'm at the office currently. So here we do all sort of things. We have these online services since 1 year. So I take the master classes. So currently today I was doing the astrophotography session in our telescope and astrophotography masterclass. And other than that, we have the science communication department here in our Space Nova too. So some team members learn how to write good blogs on the website. The others learn how to make videos and other material which would go out on social media and other platforms. So because everything has been mostly doing online, we have been doing it online more than a year. So yeah, just part of their team and doing all the stuff in the space sciences because I really love astronomy and space sciences. And then with a hint of science communication, and that's just too good.
I suppose you mentioned one of the things that comes up on this show a lot, and
Yeah,
that's basically trying to incite, I suppose, the wonder and passion for science in children, using different means in media, because sometimes the way science is taught in class is very like dull and boring and doesn't bring out, I suppose, the wonder of science. And that's kind of
yeah,
really important to get them, like you said, hooked at a young age. Instead of
yeah.
just learning lines of fact that they have to, just memorize to throw out in a test or an exam.
Yeah.
So how did, like, where in your time, because you did study sciences in undergrad, where during your whole journey from the time that you decided to do science up until this point did you figure out, okay, I need to use different types of multimedia to convey the messages that you wanted to convey?
Yeah, so while I was doing my graduation, so my bachelor's in physics, when I was in my second year, I realized I was, thinking that okay, we are being taught so many things at college, but I was more outgoing. Some times when it comes to astronomy, so I essentially went to an astro camp, and the people who organized this astro camp, I got in touch with them, and I was interning with them. So at that point of time, I did not know what exactly science communication is. I had joined their team mostly as an educator, so somebody who could again go back to classrooms and teach things about astronomy to students wherever this company used to work. So I was thinking like, okay, that is good. That is something that I had been familiar to. When you go out, when you go in a classroom and you teach students, maybe not exactly like a teacher, but it is built as an educator. But slowly I also realized that people do this not just in classroom but outside of classroom. So we used to have these astro camps that I was essentially part of once. So I had organized many of these astro camps along with my team members, and I had to travel. So I realized that okay, you can do so much more when you are not in the classroom, but when you're outside. So if you have a telescope, and then maybe if you take pictures and you post them on the social media and you talk about okay, this is the thing we saw tonight, and if you can share that same stuff on social media, maybe it can inspire even more people, and they will be like, okay, we also want to observe this particular thing. And that's when I started, like, whatever I used to do through that company, I used to started sharing that on my social media. So before that, I was already on Instagram, but I used to just share facts, so there was nothing much to it. Like, there wasn't not necessarily a person behind it. But when I was having these experiences on my own, that okay, I'm traveling and I'm going to this location, I realized that okay, along with the education and the astronomy that I was doing, I could also communicate to the people using the social media I already had. So I started doing that on I started with Instagram and Facebook because those were I was most comfortable with. And slowly, when I just graduated and I changed the positions from here then there, I like continued that whole thing, and then I realized that there are so many other people who are doing it. So I can do so many things online. I could do so many things offline, which mostly come in the outreach part, where you have to like go out. There is some hands-on activity, and I realized that okay, I actually love being part of all of those, and they actually exist. So I don't have that's not an unrealistic dream to go after, not an unrealistic dream to chase. But yeah, there are people who are science communicators. So people who I see on TV, they are actually science communicators, and I can do all of that stuff if I find that more interesting versus teaching in classroom or studying in studying along, like, mostly all of that stuff in my classroom. So going outside of classroom, because that's where the students are, either you can find them on social media, you can find them on parks, or you can find them on the tourist destinations, so interacting about the night sky, all of that stuff. So in person or online, I just found that I enjoy that more. And that's how I got into this field of science communication. And later on, like, when I was just finding different ways, I came to know, okay, you cannot just simply write and share stuff on social media, but you can also make videos about it. And then I was having multiple like ideas, like what exactly I don't want to do. And at some point of time, I had like sessions just like we are having one today. I used to have had these sessions on YouTube and Instagram as well. I was like, okay, there is so much I can do using just the social media. And then when like the situations are better, when the pandemic has been like the rate is very very less and everybody can just travel anywhere they want, I am thinking to just take whatever I am doing, to take all of this to a more offline mode and do more outreach. And currently I do like more online things, but yeah, I wanted to do things offline, just go out to that night sky where everything is really dark, and just like I have it back in my village. So similar to that stuff and other locations here in India and outside India.
Okay, so I suppose you were forced to focus on the digital stuff because of the pandemic, which I think is a relatable story for everybody because everybody pretty much got stuck having to change their entire life. But going further
Yeah.
back, you mentioned, the night sky in your village and stuff like that. How did you actually, where was that spark in your decision to actually get into the field of physics and astronomy? Where did that come from?
Yes. So I would say while growing up, when I was in high school, so at that time I didn't necessarily knew like what exactly I wanted to do. So my dad, he used to like switch places, so we did not stay at one exact place year after year, like many like kids have been familiar to, because my dad was in military, and after one place to another place, we had to shift within like 2 to 3 years. So I wasn't like attached to any place wherever I had lived compared to my village where I used to come back. So whenever I used to be back at my village, I did not had much stuff to do. But one thing I had noticed is like in all of these years, whenever I was back in my in my village, that the night sky is really clear there. It's very clear. You can see so many things. I had not able to identify what exactly is Milky Way when I was a kid. But I was like, yeah, there are just so many things. The stars are more here compared to all the locations I used to live, with my family. And then later on, when I was just growing up more, in coming out of the high school, I realized that okay, I want to study science because I was good, very good academically. But then the point was like, what exactly do I want to study? And I realized that there's a thing known as astronomy. Thanks to the internet and the TV, I came to know, okay, this field is known as astronomy, where you can study the night sky, where you can study everything. So there is astrophysics, there is astronomy. I did not knew what is what, but I knew that okay, these people do something with the night sky that I really like. Because back, before, even before going to my village and just realizing how good the night sky is, I used to have these questions about the universe, like how exactly did the universe began. But I used to think maybe these questions are, they're not that we can just ask them, but there are no answers. I used to think like that, like nobody thinks. Because nobody talks about these things in the class, and none of my friends used to talk about it. But I was like, okay, maybe there are no answers to these questions and nobody studies it. But when I realized, okay, in this all has to do with astronomy and cosmology, like people actually do study how did the stars came from, how did the humans came from, how it will all end. There are theories for it, and they're all backed up by science and maths. I realized that okay, this is the stuff that I really want to study because I was more inclined and interested into it compared to any of the other stuff. So my family was like, maybe you can become a doctor because it's good in studies. I was like, no,
Yeah.
I want to go into astronomy. But astronomy wasn't that popular, and it's still not that popular here in India. So it was very difficult to for me, to actually find a place where I could study, let's say astronomy. And I could not really. I was thinking like what would be the best place, and the most closest I could find to studying astronomy was to study physics first. So I went for physics. I studied physics for 3 years, but like sadly, I had my high hopes that one of the semesters in my college I would be taught astronomy and astrophysics, but sadly we did not had any professors who were teaching this course. So I had to study other courses like nuclear physics and the other physics. But not necessarily astrophysics. But I was doing all the other internships, like when I went to astrocamps, when I went to planetariums, I just had discovered this whole field of outreach, public engagement, science communication. So I realized, okay, if I have to again go, I can like take one route of academia and I can pursue like my masters further on, and I can go from that route, or I can really can just jump directly into it because that's what I really like. I want to travel and I want to talk about science. I want to learn about science. I want to share everything. So I inclined myself more into the science communication, and that's when like slowly it kept on building up. But I really thank the internet a lot, because that's when I really got excited, and I had all of my questions answered. So there are things like on YouTube there is a PBS crash course of astronomer Phil Plate. That is like I used to wait so much. It used to come out every Friday. I think I was in 11th or 12th standard, and I used to literally wait for it. And now it's very popular. Many students have seen it till now. And then there are series like Carl Sagan's Cosmos and Neil deGrasse Tyson's Cosmos. So I was like, so hooked up by all of these series that now I try to sometimes, explain these concepts and make videos about this concept, talking about the same thing. So looking back, 5 to 6 years back in the time, I don't think I would have been able to accept that, okay, even I would be, doing sort of the same things that those people were doing, whom I was learning so much from. But yeah, I have decided that, okay, I want to pursue further on this path and go just in the astronomy and the space science field, but through science communication, not necessarily through, going to the lab and pursuing research in this, but doing research in other things like the science communication department, where we will be learning about how exactly we need to communicate this stuff to the audience and how that is better. So doing research in that, but not doing research about why exactly is this star having this type of properties. It's not that I don't love it. It's just that I am currently more interested in towards the other one.
For sure. That sounds like a interesting Interesting journey. So some of those points I actually relate with a lot. Like my mom also wanted me to become a doctor, and I did become a doctor, but not a medical one. Certainly,
Yeah.
my bank account does not reflect that in any way. And I also too quite interested in science communication, actually conveying science, because I think almost everybody, like during their time in their science career, kind of identifies that there's a disjunct between how we communicate science, and like
Right.
your unit of work as a scientist is a publication in a peer reviewed journal. But because of the way that it's done, the highly technical use of terms, jargon, not everybody's going to understand. Like it takes years of reading in a very narrow field to actually understand a scientific paper. And that's why I think people who are communicating science and trying to translate that type of word usage into terms that regular people can understand is very important. Otherwise, it just gets lost into the ether. Never mind that, I think 50% of all like scientific papers are only read by the authors and the reviewers and the editors. So
Yeah.
a lot of it gets lost, and yeah, people like you who are trying to communicate and translate it are quite important. And you particularly interested in video. I know there's a paper that came out recently that was on. Well, I saw scicomm Journal Club tweeting about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So since you were in charge of the tweet session, can you tell me a bit about that paper and how it relates to what you've seen and what you've done?
Yeah, so it's like I had taken part, like science, SciComm Journal Club. They had organized a mission, a challenge, like State Your Mission Challenge, where we had to talk about our SciComm project. So I talked about like Astro Roxy. That's the alias or the project name I use. Astro, Astro, people can just simply relate to like, okay, this is Astro, and Roxy is like my nickname. So it originated from there. And like I had talked about my, like, what exactly is Astroxy all about, and happily I had won that challenge. And one of the things that I had to do was, we had this Twitter chat in which I had the freedom to select any paper that I want to talk about, and then they will sort of summarize most of the important points of that particular paper that I had selected. And then we, all of the people who are interested, we all can have a discussion on it. So the topic that I selected was how do audience, how can we engage with the audience using these videos? Not necessarily anything else, but strictly focusing on videos. And there were many things that came out of that paper. Like one of the things was that was very surprising was like if some expert is talking about a particular topic, let's suppose if somebody is talking about gravitational waves, so we have someone who is an expert in gravitational waves, maybe they already have done a PhD in it, and they're talking about their research versus a science communicator or something similar on YouTube if they are talking about these gravitational waves. So if the audience is asked like after the video has ended, which particular video did they understand most into, which was the video they get bored into. So if yeah, like we have these two type of categories, like one is expert and the other one is a non-expert, but essentially someone who is similar to a science communicator. So they had found that if the person is a PhD, that doesn't necessarily guarantee that people will be more inclined into it, or they will be understanding it more. And there was another thing that the experts, they are experts in their field, but they don't exactly know how the YouTube algorithm works. So the content that they produce, it might not be that much picked up by the algorithm, so they won't be that much popular, and that's why so many things will be limited compared to a science communicator who knows how things work on YouTube and the algorithm. So they will be like doing this job better as a science communicator as well. So it's like there was a disconnect. The people might be thinking that, okay, if I need to become a science communicator, maybe I need to get a PhD, that only the people will listen to me. But that's not necessarily the case. Like, even if you are able to communicate something good, and if you are, you know how YouTube works, how videos works, and how to engage with the audience, then you can actually do better and reach more people and be more successful on at least the YouTube platform, and making videos and communicating science, compared to someone who is an expert and who has years of knowledge, because they don't necessarily know like how to explain that and how to engage with the people here on YouTube. So that was something interesting that I had to find out, because I had personally, like when I was in my graduation, so I was like, the people, they were telling me that not necessarily, what is science communication. There are not that much opportunities in science communication, so you have to do a master's in physics and a PhD in physics or astronomy. Then only people will listen to you. Like, how exactly they can listen to you now? So I was like, now I can show them this paper. Okay, look, here are the results.
Yeah,
Here are the
yeah,
people.
yeah.
This is what the people say. And there was one more interesting thing that was like I used to think that when we talk in, like, whenever we are making any such of any type of videos in science communication. So let's suppose we're talking about like how photosynthesis happens. So if that is an example, like how photosynthesis happens, and we're trying to explain it. So if I just make the video of myself talking to camera, versus if I use animations and some sort of science art, and trying to explain that on my own, so that would be actually performing more better, because then the audience can see it and they can understand it, so up to a level. So I used to think that I need to present myself over and over on the camera, but that's not necessarily the case. It's like, even if you're not present in the video, but you're just doing the voiceover or the narration, even those videos can perform very better, because there are so many complex subjects and topics that you cannot just explain with your hands and all of that, but you have to use the arts, and you have to like really do something creative. And that's when the people actually feel that, okay, I have now understand how photosynthesis happens. So they're not just listening to our words or looking at us, but they're looking, okay, this is how this molecule is going into, and this is how it's going out. So then they understand. So I used to think that first I used to do science communication mostly on that part, but now after being part of this the conversation or the discussion that I was having with scicomm journal club, I realized that, okay, maybe I can start learning some science art as well, and some science illustration, so that whatever I'm speaking, maybe I can explain that better in that way. So that would be a good step for me and everyone else, and maybe other people, other science communicators can also follow this. It's like, at some point of time when there is some concept, we really do need to have a pen and paper, and we have to draw it out and explain it. Okay, like, this is how it looks. We cannot just explain it using our words, like, no matter how hard we try. So that sort of videos perform
Yeah.
better. It's like the paper was about these type of things, that there was, I think, about 500 people, and there was like so many YouTube channels. They had different sort of the reach, and how much subscribers they have, how much videos they have. They had taken all of the different data, and they had asked different questions. So these were like two of the results and conclusions that had came out of it. So it's like, if more experts and science communicators, they go through these papers, they'll might want to change the conventional way in how they do or produce these videos, and how they do it on YouTube, because now YouTube has been growing so much popularity over the last 5 years or so. Like, there's so much science out there, not just anything else, but there's so much science going on and being produced at YouTube also. So it was good, like, to see papers like this, which can help the new science communicators learn something, and then improve along with the time before they get used to one form of science communication.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like if you're in like YouTube culture, I suppose other fields, would fields be the right word, categories, like you would know
Hmm.
like the difference between these videos. Like you would call it like a video essay instead of like
Yeah.
a vlog.
Yeah.
in those two different types of videos. And for sure, like if you're trying to explain certain concepts, not necessarily scientific, but let's say you want to explain like, I don't know, different types of Pokemon or whatever, you would use like highly edited videos, imagery, and that
Yeah.
sort of thing. And even in that, there's a language in itself without even adding the voiceover, and all of that adds to the kind of the appeal, the overall like charisma of the video, and makes you want to watch, keeps you captivated going through the
Yeah.
video and through the channel. So it's something like for me, who I derive a lot of my entertainment from YouTube in the first place. It's kind of obvious to me how
Yeah.
that goes, but it's not necessarily obvious to, I suppose,
Everyone
the older
else.
generation of scientists who only know how to convey their message in like two forms. Either it's like writing it in the paper, or doing like a presentation at a conference. Like those are the two forms. And like a PowerPoint presentation doesn't necessarily translate well to YouTube. It can, if it depends how charismatic you are and you're speaking. But there's other elements to add onto it that I think that's more difficult to quantify, because it uses, I suppose, aspects from like media in general, like filmmaking and
Yeah.
voiceover artistry, and then on top of that, you got the marketing aspect of social media, which is a whole other field you need to learn if you want to get into this thing. So it's like
Yeah.
having it's if you want to be a science communicator and a scientist, like you have to learn a whole other job, I think, if you're not just doing like science writing, which is
Yeah.
like blogging essentially. So I think it's good that this paper came out, because I hope that it will, I suppose, light a fire under people who are kind of stuck in the old ways, and maybe make them realize that like just recording yourself like giving a lecture is not necessarily science communication, and
Yeah.
there's some nuances to that. So I was very glad that the paper came to the conclusions. I need to read it myself and fully inhale
Like
all of the information.
if even if you go through the discussion we had, so it's like science communication general club, I think they will be putting out as sort of moments, so that there's this thing I never really knew. I just came to know about this recently only. So you can just capture whole the discussion, all the tweets, and then anybody can just go. So I think they had summarized the paper pretty well. So even if you just go through the summary, that was good. So even that is, a kind of science communication, when a person doesn't have to read the whole paper. But even if
Yeah,
the paper is about science communication, even that has been
yeah,
translated, through this
yeah,
discussion.
yeah.
And yeah, I forgot to mention the most important thing, but I just remembered it when you were talking about it. Like the main highlight of the paper, the first conclusion was the audience that said that they have been educated, or they learned something new, was the one which was most entertained. So you have to entertain your audience, and then only they will enjoy learning about it, and they won't either close their video or something. You won't get popular on YouTube. So the most important thing was they should be entertained. So if they are getting entertained, and then they are getting the science or the education through the video, that means that's a win-win situation for both of us. Like, you are doing a good job to reaching them, and they are also learning something new while not getting bored. That takes a lot of hard work, and you have to learn new methods how to engage with the audience. But that was the conclusion that the paper said. Like, if the audience is getting entertained, and you are engaging with the audience in any sort of way, if it's more interactive, then only you will be getting like, it depends. Like, your channel will be getting better, you will be getting more views, you'll be getting more recognition. People will say you're a better science communicator. So you cannot just make it simple and plain and boring. It has to be entertaining, even though science and entertainment, they don't really go hand in hand. But that's what the paper suggested.
Yeah. It's about attention, I suppose, and you have to
Yeah.
have people pay attention. And I suppose that's really difficult to do when it comes to to science, like if there's not an underlying reason why you're doing it that's not related to like lectures or whatever, it's, I think it's difficult for the average Joe to be like, I'm just going to listen to what this is that might not be relevant to me in any way. But if
Yeah.
it's not presented in an entertaining way, like, yeah, I mean, I have the same thoughts about like what some people call serious games or serious video games, and like games that are made in order to teach certain things. Whether it's just everyday knowledge or whether it's a tool, because I know there are video games that teach surgeons and doctors certain things. And that's one thing, and that's useful. Like if you're using that in like a course, then it makes sense. But if you're trying to teach everybody general knowledge, like you have to make an entertaining game first, like because you have to be able to captivate people to play through it. It's one of those things where like you gotta like just trying to focus on making something that is just only to teach is kind of putting the cart before the horse, unless you're doing a university course, because I mean you're paying for it, you know what you're getting into. But when it comes
Yeah.
to entertainment, especially online entertainment, where it's so easy to get distracted by things, especially like on platform. I mean, there's entire platforms now that are built on like very short like video and
Yeah.
like very short ideas, like Twitter, TikTok. And
Yeah.
so, and those things usually have like, it's like a fire hose of information. So you have to be able to stand out and entertain. In my in my humble opinion, I think. But I think
Mhm.
the paper kind of mirrors what I kind of thought this whole time. So, what exactly do you do as a chief astronomical officer? Is that what it's called
Yeah.
at Space Nova? What is Space Nova and what do you do there?
So, like, I had joined Space Nova early. I think it had been like 10 months now. As soon I went, the lockdown happened and I went back to my village. I did not had necessarily that much things to do. I was studying online, but the online classes were, yeah, they were kind of hectic. Like, that was a whole nightmare when it first happened. But I kind of got used to it, and I knew that okay, I have to just finish. It will be just a month or two, after which my college will be over and I will have to find new things to work out. And I knew that I really wanted like to, I could either get into masters right away, but the situations weren't that right. And like everything had been postponed and I could not really get into a college that time. So I had all of this free time. I was looking like what exactly I could do. So I was interested in like making these videos, but that's when I came across Space Nova as well. So when I joined it, I did not really knew, and the company was also very new at that time. So I started with hosting these webinars, and like I was happy about it. Like, okay, we're doing something. There was the SpaceX launch that was about to happen as soon as I had joined the company, and I came to know like how exactly you do these live webinars. So that was a very new concept for me. We had been to seminars, so many times when I was in college, but this whole thing about webinars was so new, and I was able to interact with people live and interact with experts live. So I really enjoyed it. And it has been a journey. I have switched many roles. And the one I was talking about is like, we have these master classes. So we have done many things here. And one of them is masterclass. So I teach two classes here. One is a training program, one is a masterclass. So masterclass is something which is a shorter version. It can last up to like from 7 days to up to 10 days, 15 days. But the training program has a bit of more to it. So there's not just lectures, but then there are assignments. If the student has learned something, they'll be getting assignments, and then they'll be asked to maybe present something. So we have these group discussions, or we ask them, okay, what did you learn about it? Do you have any doubts? So it's like we are helping them, to regain all of that stuff they have learned. It was just like we have the science communication, but not everything can be taught through science communication. They can be only made interested into science, but when it comes to actually teaching it, if we go about the way how we have been taught in colleges, So that's not necessarily the best way, because we have been through colleges, like, me and the other people. So it's like, we try something new that we think that, okay, that might work very good with the students. And that's when, we try new things, that, okay, we might give a whole set of this sort of assignment to them. And then we'll be like, okay, we want to give some new sort of assignment to them and see, like, okay, how exactly is it working well. And we constantly keep in touch with them. So yeah, like, we tried out for the webinars and then the masterclass and the training program, which is essentially like 1 month long. So that's a really big deal. Like, and one is also currently going on. And now I'm here in like back in Delhi NCR, and we are trying to currently do something else, which is just even more bigger level of the training program. So it's like learning all of this stuff, because as I told, astronomy is not really that popular. Like, even if I wanted to study it, I had to choose physics, and I was not getting the professors in my college. So it's like that only. Like, if somebody has to study the other fields of space sciences, like, where exactly do they have to go? Maybe they can go to the internet, but that's like only to certain extent. They cannot really ask the questions to the experts there and engage in all these sort of activities. And we really wanted to do that here in India. So we're doing that, and we have been progressing really good. So this was like one of the things that I do educate, and then I also like mentor students here. So first I was learning and I was experiencing, but now we have some volunteers who are joining Space 101 new, so they also want to learn. They're interested in astronomy and space sciences, and they're like, okay, we also want to learn how to write blogs, or we know already how to write blogs, but we want to write them to a different audience, and we want to polish our skills. So they might learn how to write blogs, how to make these videos on social media, and then send it out to the world. So they're all learning, because I have been into this field more than them. I have some experience, and now I get to share to them. So either it is in the field of astronomy or in the field of science communication, I'm able to do that here through Space Innova. And then we have other sort of things in which I'm not directly involved into, but the other people are involved into. So we're trying to do things which nobody has necessarily done it on such a big scale. So we collaborate with organizations here in India, even outside India, who are maybe in the research field, or who are doing some citizen science, or even different fields. So we're trying to collaborate with them and bring all of that space sciences to the students, so that they can actually do it at a very low cost. So we don't currently we do not really charge that much. So we are very happy and we are very proud of that. At a very nominal cost, we are able to provide this sort of quality level education to the students here in India and even outside India. So just not just science communication, but working and educating people. So I'm glad that I'm able to actually do both of them. So just doing it on social media, or doing it through webinars, or doing through actually a class where you are like, okay, like, this is the question and now we have to solve it. But because I have those skills, I think I and even the other members of my team, they are able to do a pretty good job, compared to how you would be learning about these concepts in when everything is just closed in the classroom and you have to just focus on your grades and your marks. So it's much more bigger than that, and I'm really glad that I'm part of the team here.
What I find about small organizations is that you can be quick to change,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
kind of pivot and try new things. And
Yeah, there's like so much freedom when it comes to into it. Like, if not just we, if somebody else, if somebody of our previous students, they say something like, okay, maybe you can change into this in your class. Maybe you can, like, first we had this class for just 5 days, but then they said, no, maybe you can increase the duration more, because we have other things going on, other online classes. So we really did increase it a bit, and we changed the juggled up the things here and there, so that it's beneficial for them. So as soon as we get the feedback, we have that freedom that we can change this. But if we get the same feedback, if the teachers get this feedback in college, they don't necessarily change the curriculum. They'll be like, no, that is fixed, you have to pass it. But we are very flexible, and we can really adapt, and that's what it's like, that will keep us growing, and it will also serve us our customers to serve better. Like, yeah, if they want something different, we can adapt to it very quickly, because yeah, we're just new and there's not a whole lot of things that we have, that there's not something very fixed that cannot be changed. That's not a very strict rule. So yeah, there is a lot of flexibility, and yeah, that plays out in a very positive role compared to anything negative. So that's a very good thing that we can change and adapt to changes very quickly.
Yeah, it sounds pretty cool. For sure, and like I was going to say, one of my gripes about universities is how slow they are to enact anything. Any
Yeah,
kind of any kind of change in any way to catch up with how the world is changing, which is very quick.
it's like you'll come back to college, and it's like you'll graduate and you'll come back to college again, but things will be same, the curriculum and everything else.
I think what you guys are doing and what other platforms like like Skillshare and Udemy
Yeah.
and just like online courses are going to just essentially probably disrupt universities. And I think universities and colleges are going to act differently in the future. I don't know exactly how, but the whole educational landscape, I think, is going to change, at least in my opinion. And I'm interested to see how.
When exactly will it change? It has been more than hundreds of years. Like, when exactly will it change? When I'm excited.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So, I mean, on Astro Roxy, I mean, my impression about it is you explain certain concepts that are happening, but also things that are happening in the now. So, like space news, essentially.
Yeah.
So, what are you looking forward to reporting on in the future? Like, is there any future event that you would like to happen? Let's say if we discover aliens or something like that. Like, what are you looking forward to reporting on in the future? Like, what occurrences you would like to see over the next few years?
Yes. So I think back 2 years back when I was, very new. So I had seen a rocket launch for the first time. That was Chandrayaan 2. It had made some news, and it was, popular here and there in India, obviously, but even outside India. Like, there's this mission by, India has made this rocket and it will be landing on the moon. It was very popular, and I had went to the place and I was seeing it live. But at that point of time, I did not really had those, how to, let's say, make a vlog out of it, because I could have really made it into. Some people did really cover it, but yeah, I think even I could have done a good job there. So, but at that time, I did not really try it. I wasn't even sure, like, how can I record this stuff? Where will I, save it? How to talk to the camera, and how to just like without getting exhausted, how to like plan all of that stuff. So, but that Chandrayaan 2 has now launched, and but there will be other upcoming missions here in India. So I'm thinking that the missions that are upcoming. So there is this Gaganyaan mission, and then there is this Chandrayaan 3 mission, which will be coming. There's no exact date, but yeah, it will be coming. So when these missions are, when these are being launched, I think like I had experienced that in person, how Chandrayaan 2 felt, and how like so many people really came to that place, and how our country had taken it. So I think if I use all the skills I have and make a video or something out of it to capture that moment, that could really inspire the people who could not really make it to the place. So if these sort of rocket launches happen more, I want to take, go and capture those, and, then present it to the world. So like we had this Perseverance launch, but, that's not something that I can really go and, touch the rover or see it from outside. So that's really, impossible for me at this stage in time, because I had not been outside of India, and to go to like JPL and, make something about it was very hard. But here in India, because I think it's much more achievable, and because not many people are doing it, so I think I really want to make stuff which is about the Indian space industry. So there are these startups, like now I'm part of one, but then there is the Indian space, the ISRO, so I want to just learn more about it and inspire the students through it too, because so many students know about ISRO, but they don't exactly know like what is it about the rocket, or what is it that we will be getting into if the mission is successful, or if the mission is not successful. Like, there was a thing that there was a bit of complications when the Chandrayaan 2 mission was landing, but it was not communicated well enough. So if there were people who could maybe communicate it, if something happens, so people should be really aware of it. What is happening in the Indian, space industry compared to, because NASA and ESA, all of these, their missions are, covered, and then they are shared and promoted. Very good. So I want to like do something in that sector here in India, and then I want to, yeah, just like I told you, I do a lot of stuff online, but I want to do it more offline as well. So just doing more of astrophotography and doing something like, wherever I'm going, if I am able to really learn this multilingual and how, how my series goes, then maybe I can, talk about it in different languages. So I can take discovering these live events, going either first bilingual and maybe multilingual here in India, so that I can reach students and people who are not really fluent in English, but they really are interested into science and learning something new. So those sort of things that I'm excited about doing. And yeah, these just missions make me so curious. So whenever the first human, went goes to Mars, so I really want to report on those things as well. Okay, like, now we are exactly, this is the first person who is landing on Mars, and really talk in depth about how, because I have been through it. I have seen that it was almost impossible when people used to say that, okay, I want to go on Mars. That was a joke, but now it's really a reality. And now, something that is not serious is how the James Webb Space Telescope will ever be launched, because it's kept on getting delayed and delayed. So I really want to, be excited and make a video out of it. The data that the James Webb Space Telescope sends, I'm very excited about it, because we all have seen how Hubble Space Telescope has done wonders. But what about JWST? So I really want to cover that and, talk about missions like that, which have been extended a lot, or which were not really, which were like science fiction some years ago, but now they're happening. So missions like this here in India and even outside India, which are like famous. So these are some of the things that I really want to do.
Oh, yeah. I suppose viewers listening at home, stay tuned to Astro Roxy as she
Yeah, in coming
reports
years,
on
there's a lot of things
interesting
coming.
things in the future.
Yeah,
Yeah, I heard just before the pandemic. I don't know. Yeah, I think maybe it would have affected it, but like 2020 was supposed to be the year for a lot of new things in space science and astronomy and discovery. I don't know whether it came true, but I think from me not being into, or not like practicing astronomical science in any way,
yeah.
I do get the feeling that, we're on the verge of many great things happening. So it might be good to stay tuned to Astro Roxy to find out what's going down there. But during your time as a physics major, as a science communicator,
Yeah,
as a teacher doing webinars,
yeah.
what's some astronomical or space science facts that you think a lot of people don't know but need to know in their lives on some level, or it would be much better if they do know certain things? What do you think those things would be?
Yeah. So we can say the first thing that is, I think, the most important thing that everyone should be aware of is that you can go out and observe a solar eclipse if you have those safety and filter glasses. Like if you are able to protect your eyes, you can literally go outside and look at the eclipse. Nothing will happen to your brain, to your body, anywhere else. Nothing will bad happen to your life. Like that's
Yeah.
a science effect. That's I think one of the, I would say, the first thing I would really tell anyone, and I will be like, okay, are we on the same page? Like, can we really go outside and observe this thing? So if they say yes, then okay, I'll be like, okay, then we can observe more things and I can talk about more things. Then there are things like, we have so many things, because I am into this, astronomy and the night sky. There are things like we can actually see planets with our naked eye. So even my brother, it's like I talk about astronomy all day and night, but even he was shocked when I was like, okay, that's Jupiter. I have taken this image of the Milky Way, and this is Saturn and Jupiter. He was like, can I actually see them with naked eyes? I was like, yeah. And he was like, no, I was thinking maybe they are stars. So many people, they think that we can only see planets like Jupiter, Saturn, Venus only through a telescope, because that's how the pictures are glorified. Like, this is the Jupiter, this is the great red spot, these are the rings, because we cannot see them with our naked eyes. Some people think that maybe, okay, they're not visible, we cannot see them with naked eyes, everything is stars and the moon. But no, if you go out, you can actually point out where is a star, you can find out which is a planet, which is a star, and you can know when a star is about to rise, when it is about to set. So these are the things which I would say, which seem very common knowledge, but to some people they're not common knowledge, and it sort of break my hearts. Like, why are they, where are they living? Like, it's not those age, the cave age. They should be knowing about these facts, and then they will be able to appreciate much more things. The other thing that I really learned about is how, like, the Perseverance, when it was going. So it's like it had to be completely. You cannot really control it from here on Earth, but you have to make it in such a way that it is able to operate on its own. Because when it is reaching the signal, so from Mars to here to send the signals back here on Earth, it takes time. So it can be like 5 minutes, it can be 20 minutes, depending upon where exactly is Mars compared to Earth. And yeah, what is the distance between Mars and the Earth? So some people might think, okay, it's just instantaneous, it will just take a bunch of seconds, and we can, because that's the speed of electricity and the internet here on Earth. So we'll be thinking, okay, it will send us the signal, and we can literally move the buttons here, and the rover will move, it can land safely. But that wasn't the case. It takes time. Like, even the light has a finite speed, or signals have a finite speed. So because of this, they had to like make this rover so that it can operate on its own, it can land on its own safely, so make it completely robotic in that way. And then they had, like, NASA had really covered it very beautifully. But if some people still don't know, I would like to tell them that, yeah, if you are going to some other planets, you cannot control the rover, the rocket from here on Earth, but you have to program it in a way that it can work on its own. So the Perseverance rover literally landed on its own. There was no human intervention for about like 10 minutes or so. It was really landing on its own. The best the scientists could do is they can write a program and they can run it 1,000 times and think that, okay, everything will be fine. And then they have to really like just like, yeah, now everything should be fine. But they cannot really do anything if something goes wrong. Like, even if there is just a bunch of error or something that they did not take into account of, they cannot do anything from here on Earth to save the rover or the mission. It will just go all in vain. So they have to practice that much. So these are, like, some of the things that I would say most of the people know, but if they do not know, maybe they can learn about these things. And one more thing would be, I would say that people can actually see things like, again, comets with their naked eyes. They can see things like meteors with their naked eyes. But when they are seeing these meteors or these shooting stars, their wish won't really come true. And then they are not even stars. So these are just rocks which, when they enter the atmosphere of the Earth, they burn because of the friction. So anything else would burn too. If it's a spacecraft, or if it's anything else that is coming outside, because it has so much velocity, when it enters the atmosphere of the Earth, so there's a friction because of which it catches fire and it burns, and that is what we humans see, and we call it like, okay, a star is that is a shooting star, and maybe I should do some wishing, and who knows what will happen. So, but yeah, there are some I would say misconceptions, but yeah, I think that really makes people to look up and do stargazing with the hope that maybe they might see a shooting star. But to know the reason behind it and then look up for shooting stars, that is, I would say, even more beautiful, because that some meteors, what exactly is this meteor famous for? It is in this constellation this time of the year, this is the color, this is the reason behind it. If you know those factors, you would be like thinking, okay, I know all of this stuff, and now you'll be able to understand like why exactly is that shooting star there. You will know the reason behind it, so it will make the experience even more beautiful. So yeah, these were some of the things I would like to share.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. I didn't think of appreciating I suppose the night sky even more by knowing certain things. That it's actually a good point that you made. So some things I think about life we attribute to things that are not necessarily scientific, but we find beauty in that. But I think equal, if not more, beauty can be found in the scientific explanations as well.
Yeah, at
So
least
yeah,
they won't be fearful.
indeed, yeah, yeah. So Rashmi, I think we've done about an hour now. There's much more we can talk about it, but I think maybe we'll save that for a future episode 2 down the line. So before
Yeah.
we end, why don't you let our lovely audience know where they can find you and your work on the internet?
Yeah, so they can find me first of all on YouTube as Astro Roxy. So that's where this multilingual series will come somewhere in the summer this year. Apart than that, they can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at the rate Astro and then underscore Roxy. So that is what I really use everywhere. So either it's YouTube, Instagram, or even Facebook. I'm not really that active there, but yeah, these are the three platforms where they can find me. And the Instagram is the best because there I really upload almost all of my stuff there, either through stories and really get into discussion. And that's a really good place. So if you want to really follow up on what's happening in the space sciences here in India, and just in world in general as well, and something about how I am just becoming my journey as a science communicator. So I share some of that stuff as well, like which things I'm participating into, or what exactly am I going through, what do I learn. So if anybody is interested into these things in science communication and astronomy in general, yeah, they can find me there. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks so much for joining, Rashmi. And thank you to listeners at home for listening. So do go and check out Rashmi's work. And if you like this episode, do also do the whole like, subscribe, follow, rate thing. I think I
Yeah.
need to do this whole call to action thing because I haven't really been doing it. My marketing strategies are not that great. I'm improving, but sure. If you enjoyed the episode, do what you need to do to in order to follow interviews like this where we explore the nexus between science, story, wonder, and philosophy, and most importantly, science communication, and also a bit of geek culture in there as well. So otherwise, stay tuned and cheers.